Breakfast right here on Citizen TV, and it's that time when we take a look at the headlines. And this morning we are privileged to have Senator Agnes Zani, Secretary General ODM, with us. On my right, Karibu Sana. On my left, we have Kipruto Rapkirwa, Deputy Party Leader, Amani National Congress, and Aaron Cheruiyot, Senator, Kericho County.
Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Now, of course, the biggest story has to do with Amina Mohammed and her loss for the loss she had yesterday in her bid to get the position of AUC chairperson. It is not the biggest headline of the dailies. Both the Standard and the Daily Nation have chosen to go with the change in curriculum. So on the Daily Nation, the splash is no more exams in new school system. Quite a big story, of course. We'll be discussing that in a short while. On the Standard, approved new system to replace 844. Let's start with Amina Mohammed and what happened at the AU yesterday, and of course after the flurry of activity that we saw in the months leading up to the election yesterday. There was so much activity, and Kenyans were convinced that we had this in the bag. Then yesterday, disappointment. What do you think went wrong?
Looking back, I think finally all the blocs actually went back to look at their interests. And of course we didn't get the support that we had expected from Uganda. We didn't get it from Djibouti, neither did we get it from Burundi. And right from the beginning, Amina started off well because she was actually leading at the beginning. But I think as different interests began to play up and more intense lobbying began to take place, there was abstention later on from South African bloc that was expected to have supported us, and the Ugandan bloc that was supposed to have supported us, and they're actually ceding, so the absenteeism actually ended up now with the full 38 votes, and us losing in the 7th round. But having said that, moving on up to the 7th round and the sort of intensive lobbying that went on really is something that shows that first of all they have quite a credible election system that they put in place to ensure that actually the person who gets in there is the person who can actually be able to do the work well, and then also that it really becomes very, very clear that all these blocs have their specific interests. So for us as a bloc, probably in terms of strategizing, we can see very clearly that the East African bloc did not read from the same page.
And that is the most worrying thing, because if everyone went back to their bloc, SADC did that, ECOWAS to some extent did it, what happened to East Africa? That Burundi and Uganda of all, our closest neighbor, just decided to go the other way.
Well, I think there are a number of factors, one of which is that some of the countries that supported the guy from Chad happened to be French-speaking, and Burundi would have joined because of that proximity in terms of the language. Number two, there is this problem of hegemony in East Africa. Kenyans, we are seen as big brother, and all the time, whenever we are in contention, even within the region, our neighbors tend not to want to work with us. Number three is also the question of interests, as Mheshimiwa Zani has just said, the interests of various blocs and the Arab world. You see, the Arab world would find themselves more comfortable with the guy from Chad. So these are some of the factors in play, and I wished her well, but unfortunately we lost that particular position. Finally, remember also the issue that Kenya, we have been having the deputy chair for the last 2 terms. Erastus Mwenja. So that might have played also, that why is Kenya doing it? And also remember the issue of ICC. We did a lot of lobbying, and Kenya did a very splendid job. But now, after lobbying for ICC not to do the damage that it was about to do for 2 of our leaders and other people, we are going again to lobby. People might have felt, oh, Kenya, you are asking for too much. We assisted you the other day, now you are coming back, you want the seat. Yeah, those are some of the factors.
Of course, the hashtag trending right now is hashtag why Amina lost. People coming up with their own theories of what happened. Some very intriguing, some very interesting, some simply just a foolery. But where do you think we went wrong? Because in the last 4 years of the Jubilee administration, we've seen a record number of foreign countries, the big leaders coming to Kenya. President Barack Obama came to Kenya, and that was huge. We've seen the leaders from India, China, all these people coming to Kenya. But when we come back home within our region, we don't seem to be getting along with anyone.
I think where we get it wrong is when we begin to look at this as a zero-sum game, where it's either a win or a loss. And to us, a win means Amina clinching the seat, which did not happen. Therefore, we consider the whole process to be a flop. I think that is wrong. There are so many things that we have gained from this process, from the trips that we've made and a lot of partnerships that we built along the way. It may not have translated into a vote finally, but by and large, we have improved on our stature. And that goes on to the point that we were earlier on debating why, for example, very close neighbors like Uganda and Burundi did not end up voting for us. I think to me it comes down to the simple issue of sibling rivalry, sort of, where you imagine here you have a neighbor who keeps on rising and rising, and there is no single day that they are.
Do you think if it was the other way around, that Uganda had a candidate, Kenya would vote?
I think we would have voted for them, because we don't seem to always have this issue at the back of our mind where we think when Ugandans are ahead of us, there's anything to worry about. But simply what we've observed over the years is that, look at our relationship with Tanzania and all these other neighbors of ours, Rwanda, how they keep on giving us deals and backtracking, is that everybody seems to have this fear of Kenya, where they think if you give a Kenyan an inch, they will take a whole acre.
Yes.
So those kind of interests keep on coming.
What does it say about Bwana Uhuru Kenyatta's foreign relations?
Apart even from the foreign policy, when you look at it, I mean, I think if we move to the rivalry scheme, I think we'll get it wrong. Because if we look at East Africa region and the way they have progressed, really, we're getting to a point where we're saying Kenya was leading. Kenya is no longer leading. Because we've put sometimes wrong policies, we've moved away from consultative politics, we've moved away from putting our things in order, and we're doing this in glaring daylight. And I think people are beginning to look at that and really begin to lose faith. Look at the GNP, for example, for Tanzania and Uganda. It has really grown. Look at the cohesion, for example, that Rwanda has been able to maintain. This is very clear that as East Africa, we're losing that leadership role. And I think we lost it even more with the ICC, because as Kenya, we actually initiated this process, and this was an important political process. Look at what happened with ECOWAS in the Gambia case, and how ECOWAS were very, very strong in coming to the fore and ensuring that key policies, especially to do with leadership, and how leadership is handled. In fact, it's only that unfortunate that ECOWAS was not able to deal properly with Jammeh, who was actually able to take amass a lot of loot and move away with it. Clearly, we are moving away from being country-oriented to regional-oriented. Clearly, globalization is becoming a key thing. Clearly, being a team player means very, very important things to many people. And I think this is where, even when it comes to the leadership, and as we even go into election, East Africa is looking at how we are managing our affairs. And this might just be a sounding of certain things that they might be saying they are not really happy with, and probably even they looked at it in terms of an influence from the AU, because we know AU and ECOWAS were very critical in the Gambia case, and therefore I think this sort of ramifications maybe is also something AU didn't want to get caught up in directly by having somebody from Kenya who would be chairing. So I think there are various factors, but I think clearly, even in terms of foreign policy, especially Kenya's relationship and the other regions, clearly there's something that has not resonated with AU. And I think they have been watching, and I think this was the time for them to speak. And I think maybe somewhere along the line also the sort of sidelining in terms of interest then also played up. But clearly, if we had the position that we've always had, it would have still been able to lobby, because from what was happening even before the vote, there'd already been a lot of intense lobbying, especially in East Africa, and especially even with Uganda, who are our neighbors, who would have expected to say, you know, join us, and then we can go back and sort our local things. That means they didn't have enough faith to even let it go and then come back to the local scene.
And that means that Kenya is growing more and more isolated, especially within this EAC voting bloc. I've seen previously when they're trying to push for something, even convincing Tanzania to sign that treaty. Of course, their interests concerned, but did you feel abandoned yesterday by everyone? Did you have that feeling that, we've been abandoned?
No, I was just slightly disappointed, because I would have wished Amina to clean the position. But remember, the issues of regional integration, they go through a lot of phases. And these phases are full of friction. And at times it generates more heat than light. So as we do all these things, remember also there is a positioning in terms of economic strategy. The issue of the pipeline that Uganda decided not to work with us for their own strategic reasons. These are some of the things in play. There is also the issue of corruption, because I'm not saying this regime is more corrupt than the other, but the perception of corruption has left us looking like we don't hold together as a country, because we've allowed it to just to get into the domain, the public domain. Finally, remember this, our situation in Somalia, although I know we may be discussing it later. Our situation in Somalia is something that makes some of our neighbors not totally comfortable. I worked for IGAD for 4 years, and you would see some of the ramifications from the way we deal with issues of Somalia. So Djibouti might have had their own reasons for doing that, or possibly they were more convinced than the rest of the country. So not all is lost. The way Senator Jeruya said, not all is lost. Yes. We put up a very good fight. We lost it, but there is still a lot of goodwill from the region. But we need more and more ways of proactivity in terms of engaging our neighbors.
Now, of course, one of the many tweets doing the rounds is as a hashtag, under the hashtag why Amina lost, has to do with how much money Kenya spent in this movement from one country to another. 51 countries in total, just trying to convince these different countries to support us, and it didn't work. And of course, people are drawing parallels with the situation back home and saying doctors are on strike, we're facing a drought, and surely would have put better use to this money. Probably if we would have won, if Amina would have won, no one would be questioning this. But because I do not know how much money was spent, but that feeling of loss definitely will have some ramifications even on the part of Jubilee.
Well, I don't think so. You know, one thing about social media is that the divide is already there, and you don't expect anybody who doesn't support this administration to post anything positive from this process, despite the fact that we continue to say, if we were such poor a show, we wouldn't have gone all the way up to the 7th round. You know, it's just a simple fact that we went to the last. It's like a team that has lost in the final.
It is, you know, winner takes it all.
No. That's why. That's why I kept on saying it's not a zero-sum game as people may want us to look at it. The converse may actually be true in our discussion that we are trying to say: is Kenya losing the grip on the regional scale? It could be also the fact that we are doing so well that it scares the others, that any opportunity they give us to advance our interest, it will be directly shooting themselves on the foot. That's why when you travel, I'm sure, Fred, across this region of ours, and you know in each of it, whether you're in Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, there's just something about Kenya that these people admire. There's something about our country. We have all these problems. There's fear, but the biggest thing is admiration. You know?
No, I think we must now really make a reality check in Kenya, and we cannot hide our face in the sand, and we cannot look at dreams and reality and confuse the two. There's a clarity between dreams and reality. There's a clear clarity as well about how Kenyans communicate, especially the young generation, who probably don't have enough forums. And social media is one of them. If I was in top leadership, I would look at what is happening with this social media, and I would take some of the things they're saying seriously. One, it is a reflection of what others are saying, and is not really coming out really. 360 million. This is the figure that is being portrayed. It could have been more than that.
Nobody has confirmed it, Senator.
Well, that is what we are saying. That's what I said. It could be more. So it hasn't been confirmed. It is likely to be more. It could be more. I suspect it's more. But here we are. You know, now if I start with the lecturer strike, you know, my background is also has been in the University of Nairobi. The CBA that we're talking about is a CBA that was actually put in 2013. It has taken 4 years. This CBA agreement is going to lapse towards the end of February, and now we are in a crisis. We're talking about a situation, a suggestion that was made about increment of salaries for lecturers across various very clear scales, and the feedback that we got is that 3%. You know, you cannot just discard people like that. Lecturers have put in a lot of effort. They have actually trained some of the expertise who have actually come and taken good jobs. They're simply saying, we want this to be addressed. The same issue with the doctors' strike. And I was talking to Senate as we came in here, and really saying, even as Senate, this is the next thing that we're going to do. Really have this as something to debate, because this is something touching on counties. The health, look at what is happening, PS, between the PS, the CS. How can you have a strike that is going on for 4 months. Why am I going to this? It's all about money. Yet we have 360 that is now being spent on a specific process. And even minus that, we are not going into a budget process. We need to be able to apportion how money is going to be used in the different sectors. Now, what is also making Kenyans restless, and this is why this regime is moving towards its end, is because there is a sense of dire corruption. Because most of this money, if it is put in where it is meant to be, these services should have been felt. And this money is not any individual's money. It is actually tax collection. So we actually have a disconnect within how tax is collected, how that tax is disseminated, and how it is used to solve various problems. So clearly, the expression that Kenyans are saying, and I agree with that expression, is that we're talking about 360 million and much more. We're talking about 791 NYS money. That would have saved the general Kenyan who now doesn't have a job, who can't go to school, who can't also have their health addressed.
Okay, Senator, hold that thought. We will need to go for a break. When we return, we'll be talking about moving forward now, the prospects for Ambassador Amina Mohamed, now that she's lost out on that. What does she do next? Should she try a stab again at this or any other international position? Should she come back, try and become a politician? Probably. But that after this short break.